Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Today on ABC News Live, Hurricane Ian is on the move. A state of emergency is in place for the entire state of Florida. Governor Ron Desantis is expected to give an update in just a few moments, and we'll be live with that when it happens. 15 people are dead, including 7 children, after a school shooting in central Russia. 21 others are also hurt. What the Kremlin is now saying about the shooter and the motive. And it's a first-of-its-kind experiment. Why NASA is about to target a small, harmless asteroid millions of miles away, and how. But we begin with Hurricane Ian moving toward the Florida coast. The storm is currently creeping closer to Cuba, triggering evacuations, and is now expected to strengthen to a Category 4. ABC News meteorologist Melissa Griffin joins me live now with more. And Melissa, you just got the new track of the storm, so what's the latest?
Yep, the National Hurricane Center just came out with their 11 a.m. advisory. So I want to tell you that Ian continues to strengthen, and we're going to see this strengthening trend continue over the next 1 to 2 days, which is not what we want to hear as it makes its way into the Gulf of Mexico. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center, Category 1 still 80 miles per hour. So it is strengthening, gusts up to 100 miles per hour. Right now, it's about 100 miles west of Grand Cayman. So they are under tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings there in the Caribbean. But here's the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. You can see it continues to strengthen. Category 3, eventually potentially into a Category 4. That's by Wednesday morning when it's in those very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Those waters are 85 to 90 degrees above normal temperatures there. That's just fueling that rapid intensification there of Hurricane Ian. And then as it gets closer to the peninsula of Florida, we're hoping that it does weaken a bit. It kind of interacts with a little bit of shear, but still a major Category 3 hurricane you see right there off the west coast of Florida, very close, dangerously close to Tampa, which is what we're so concerned about. And still that cone anywhere from Panama City all the way to Fort Myers really needs to stay alert to Hurricane Ian because, of course, that forecast still can't change. Tropical storm watch is now in effect for parts of Florida, including Naples, a hurricane watch in effect for Tampa. And some of our impacts that we're going to see from Hurricane Ian depended upon that track. Some places could see it worse than others. Life-threatening storm surge. Of course, Tampa, we are the most concerned about. Up to 8 feet of storm surge possible in that city, which could become devastating. Heavy rain and flash flooding up to 15 inches possible. And, of course, that potential for tornadoes, Diane. So a very important forecast over the next couple of days.
So, Melissa, we're going to keep getting updates in on this. As you learn about these new tracks, what are you watching for?
So we're watching for those models to kind of be shifting because we see that east and west trend, and it really just depends on if it moves further east, we're looking at a stronger hurricane. That's in the Tampa down to Fort Myers area. If those models trend further west, we're looking at a weaker hurricane closer to the Panhandle. So every couple of hours, those models update, and we're seeing for those trends to either shift further east or west, and that's going to be so important on the track and intensity of what comes to Ian over the next couple of days for Florida.
It sure is. Melissa Griffin, thank you. And all of Florida is under a state of emergency as they prepare for this storm. ABC News senior meteorologist Rob Marciano is in Tampa this morning. Rob, good morning.
Hello, Diane. A lovely day here in the Tampa Bay area. It's a good day for the folks to get things done that they haven't done over the weekend as far as storm preps for now Hurricane Ian. Less than 700 miles away, around 600 miles away now. It's closing in and it's getting bigger and stronger. And the anxiety levels here are ramping up for sure. They've now closed the public schools in parts of Hillsborough and Pinellas counties because a lot of those schools are going to be used as public shelters during the storm. Some of them are going to be open as soon as tonight. So those sort of steps are going to be taken by the officials here. They've cleaned some of the drainage areas so that the flooding rains can have somewhere to go. But the storm surge is going to be an issue. I mean, I'm standing right on the bay where the river comes into the bay here in downtown, and the water doesn't have to go very far to get into the city here, just a few feet. And if we get 8, 9, 10 feet of surge, that means much of the city will be inundated. And that may very well include the local hospital, which has the main trauma unit here. They may have to evacuate patients. So there's a lot to be still to come here in the Tampa Bay area. I've talked to the mayor and the emergency operations manager yesterday. They're urging you to have a plan in place to be prepared. And the mayor telling me that they rehearsed for this. They are prepared for anything that Ian provides and comes with. But she also reminded me that It's been over 100 years since this area got a direct hit from a major storm, so they don't really know what's going to happen because the city has changed so much. So there's a lot of uncertainty, not just with the track, but how it will impact this city and this entire Bay Area with so much water that can come up the gut here. So that's it. We sit, we wait, and we watch this thing develop, and preparations for this storm are rushed to completion here in the Tampa Bay area. Diane?
All right, Rob Marciano, thank you. And ABC News Live will stay on top of this storm throughout the whole week. Stay with us for that coverage. And right now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is in Tallahassee holding a briefing on the storm. Let's listen.
Thank you for coming, for our FEMA regional coordinator. As of 11 a.m., the storm is located roughly 375 miles south of Key West, and it's moving north-northwest at about 14 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds are now up to 80 miles an hour, and it moves into the Gulf, where it's expected to strengthen into a major hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico as early as tomorrow. It will bring heavy rains, strong winds, flash flooding, storm surge, along with isolated tornado activity along Florida's Gulf Coast. Floridians up and down the Gulf Coast should feel the impacts of this as up to 36 hours before actual landfall due to the size of the hurricane. This is a really, really big hurricane at this point. The diameter, the width of it's about 500 miles wide. So if you look at the cone, and if you look at where they have the landfall going, I think the landfall is still Levy County. The impacts are going to be much, much broader than that. Of course, that track is still uncertain. It could absolutely wobble further into the peninsula or even further away from the peninsula. You will see storm surge in places like Southwest Florida, even though the storm is projected to be 100 or 150 miles off the coast of Southwest Florida. And so you look in Collier County, they've already issued voluntary evacuations for some of their coastal communities because the storm surge is likely to be significant given how big the storm is. A tropical storm warning has been issued for a portion of the Florida Keys from the 7 Mile Bridge south to Key West. Hurricane and tropical storm watches have been issued from Inglewood south to Naples. We also have storm surge watches in effect from Pinellas County down to the Florida Keys. Those watches are anticipated to become warnings later today. Now, some counties have begun issuing evacuation orders or voluntary evacuations. The important thing for people to know is to know the zone that you're in. You will have counties probably throughout this morning and into this afternoon identifying areas that are vulnerable for evacuation, so you should anticipate that if you're on counties in Florida's Gulf Coast. Of course, as you go further north in Florida, there is a little bit more time before those decisions have to be made. So as we get into the northern Florida and into the Panhandle, those decisions may not be today, but certainly for Southwest and Tampa Bay, be on the lookout for that, because I know we've been conferring with a lot of the local officials that those are going to happen. The way to go is to go to floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. That will be able to allow you to look to see whether you are in an evacuation zone. And so if they do call for an evacuation of, say, Zone A, and you're in Zone A, then you know that, and you can take the appropriate action. The Florida Department of Transportation is now suspending tolls at facilities in the Tampa Bay area, the Polk Parkway in Polk County, Mid-Bay Bridge in Okaloosa, Spence Parkway in Okaloosa, Garcon Point Bridge in Santa Rosa, and of course all the Tampa Bay area, Pinellas Byway, Sunshine Skyway, Selman Expressway, I-4 Connector in Hillsborough, as well as Alligator Alley down in Collier into Broward counties. And as we continue to monitor the path of Hurricane Ian, we may do more toll suspensions in other parts of the state if that is warranted. Some school districts have announced school closures for this upcoming week, and you may see more as the track becomes more certain. If you want to look at the most updated information regarding schools, you can get that at fldoe.org/storminfo. That's fldoe.org/storminfo. The Florida National Guard has activated 5,000 Florida Guardsmen, as well as 2,000 additional Guardsmen from Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina that have been activated to help. We've also have 5 urban search and rescue teams that are activated. We have Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission mobilized and ready to support needed efforts. And of course, the U.S. Coast Guard is also willing and able to assist in both preparation and response. Of course, we've declared a state of emergency for the entire state, given the uncertainty that exists. Of course, as we go every hour, we get a little bit more certainty in the general area, and we know that this is going to have major impacts on Florida's Gulf Coast. We've issued waivers of weight restrictions for commercial trucks to ensure we have ample fuel and resources coming into Florida. Make sure you're prepared. There's no need to panic buy. If you normally don't drink a lot of water, you may not need to go out and buy 20 gallons of water right now. So just do what you need to be prepared. We've been in contact with some of the major retailers like Publix and Walmart. They are constantly resupplying. I know Publix did way more than they normally do, and a lot of that is flying off the shelves. But just know there's an effort to be made to make sure that those shelves are restocked as quickly as possible. We've also authorized emergency refills of maintenance prescriptions for 30 days, and we'd anticipate anyone as part of your hurricane preparedness plan, make sure you have the prescriptions that you need. We've also been in contact with the major utilities throughout the state of Florida, particularly those that are servicing the Gulf Coast of Florida, FP&L, Duke Energy, TECO, the municipal electric providers, as well as the rural electrical co-ops. And I can tell you, between all of those, I mean, there are tens of thousands of people that are staged and that are going to be ready to go when the storm passes to try to get power restored. But folks should be prepared if you're in this region that there is going to be an interruption of power. So just plan on that. Understand that will happen. Even if the storm, the eye of the storm doesn't hit your region, you're going to have really significant winds. It's going to knock over trees. It's going to cause interruptions. And so that's just the name of the game. So just be prepared for that. And then they have the resources in place where, of course, that's going to be a priority once it's safe to go in there and get as much power back on as quickly as possible. Make sure that you have your plan in place. Finish whatever preparations you have. I mean, this thing is coming this week, and we know that, and we know we're going to have some major impacts throughout the state of Florida. We have at the department here for emergency management received 338 requests for assistance from local counties. 293 of those have already been fulfilled, and others are on the way. We've deployed 210 medical professionals to Hillsborough County special needs shelters and another 120 to surrounding counties. We have 300 ambulances supporting special needs evacuations in the Tampa Bay area, and hundreds of generators and pumps have also been staged in the Tampa Bay area to prepare for the flooding that we're anticipating. So please continue to monitor your local weather service for updates. Make sure that you're commencing your storm preparations. Visit floridadisaster.org/get-a-plan to see some of the things that may need to be done. For all you new Floridians who haven't been through one of these before, just understand, just remain calm. There's no need to panic. Listen to the folks at the local level. Listen to what they advise in terms of preparations, any evacuations. If you are going to be in your home when the power goes out and you have one of the generators, just understand those generators must be operated outside the home. Every year, we tend to have people that operated inside their home. You will get poisoning from carbon monoxide, and we have fatalities for that. In fact, we've had more fatalities in recent storms from the use of the generators than we've had from the direct impact of the storm itself. So just understand, it's great to have a generator. Obviously, we live in a very connected world. People want to have that power on, and I understand that, and I do too. But make sure it's used properly, and that exhaust has got to be going outside your home. Do not let that come inside your home. So we're continuing to work with communities at the local level. I've been able to speak with a number of the folks today. We're going to continue to work to support their plans. Obviously, at this point, we want everyone to be safe. You have a significant storm that may end up being a Category 4 hurricane, and I know they say it may slow down by the time it reaches landfall, but if you have that off the west coast of Florida, that's going to cause a huge amount of storm surge. You're going to have flood events. You're going to have a lot of different impacts from that. So we want everybody to be safe. We want people to weather the storm, and that ultimately is the most important thing. property damage and these things, it's terrible that would happen in a storm, but we can fix that and we can help rebuild. But you got to take care of yourself, and we want to make sure everybody is safe. Of course, as the storm hits and in the immediate aftermath, we have all these resources that are staged, from our guard to Fish and Wildlife, search and rescue, to be able to help people that are in need. And then, of course, once the dust settles, there's a premium on restoring power, fuel, communication, so that people can resume normalcy as soon as possible. I want to let Kevin Guthrie come up here from our Department of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor.
We were just listening to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. They're briefing the state on all the preparations underway for Hurricane Ian. The storm is currently making its way toward Florida. As the governor describes, it's currently 500 miles wide. So he is now warning residents of the broad impact the storm is going to have, encouraging people to prepare and stay safe. And over in Naples, Florida, leaders there are encouraging residents to review their emergency plans and be sure to stay informed on local updates as this storm is still moving, as is its track. The city's mayor, Teresa Heitman, joins me now with more on all of that. Mayor Heitman, thanks for being here. I know it's a super busy time for you. You've been a resident of the city of Naples since 1988, so you know this area well. You've ridden storms there out there before. How are you preparing for this storm, and how are you advising your residents to prepare?
Well, the first thing is our staff has been preparing and making sure our drains and our lakes are clear, so we know we'll get some flooding from this. My biggest concern is for those new residents who haven't experienced a storm, that they remain calm, that they gather their items for at least 7 days and decide whether they're going to stay in Naples or whether they will evacuate, to go onto our city website and sign up for Code Red, and also find updates on our city website to the progress of the storm.
Now, we just heard from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The whole state is under a state of emergency. So how are you working with state leaders to also try to ensure the safety of your residents and help your area prepare?
Well, we, once the governor decided or declared a state of emergency this afternoon, I'll go into chambers and declare a state of emergency that'll go into effect tomorrow, which will last 72 hours. And that's, so that we can make sure that our evacuation routes and our shelters are open, and that our residents know where they will go. So it's a major coordination between the state and with the Collier County emergency management team.
All right, Mayor Teresa Heitman, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wishing you safety. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're following new developments out of Russia, where at least 15 people were killed, including 11 children, after a gunman opened fire at a school. The Kremlin is calling it a terrorist attack. Russian state media reports police have identified the shooter as a 34-year-old former student at the school, and they say he died of a self-inflicted gunshot after the attack. Russia's investigative committee says it's looking into whether the shooter held, quote, neo-fascist views, and released a video showing the shooter wearing a T-shirt with a red swastika on it. And resistance is growing inside Russia against the war in Ukraine. Hundreds of people have been arrested in protests against the new military draft, and thousands of others are fleeing the country. Meanwhile, the U.S. is warning of catastrophic consequences for Russia if they use nuclear weapons in the conflict. ABC News contributor and former senior CIA field operative Darrell Blocker joins me now with more on this. Darrell, thanks for being here. How significant do you think this rising resistance within Russia is? How do you see this playing out?
I think it's very significant. I think it's been going on since the very beginning, but now we're starting to see definitely across all of the different provosts and all of the different provinces, people are speaking with their feet. The borders are jammed up. Brain drain is happening. The people are not happy with Putin and his decisions.
Now, the U.S. is again warning Russia not to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. This has been an ongoing concern. So do you feel like it's growing more urgent?
I'm not sure if it's growing more urgent. The Soviet tactics include the use of tactical nukes. So this isn't new to the U.S. Military establishment or the intelligence community. What is new, Diane, is the fact that Putin would probably be the most dangerous person to have his finger on the button, but he does have a lot of people around him who can perhaps temper his overeagerness to not come to what I think is a natural conclusion, which is him leaving office either by his own volition or by the people of Russia rising up against him.
Russia's also holding these sham referendum votes in Russian-occupied territory. What are you looking out for there?
So 97% is what the Russians got back in 2014 when they did did a similar referendum. I don't think the numbers are going to be that high. I think they're going to be in Putin's favor, but no one in the world is really going to accept them. A couple of the neighbors have already spoken out and said they're not going to recognize them. United Nations certainly will not, and neither will the West. And quite frankly, the people that are voting, the people within those provinces are not behind anything that Putin wants to do there.
All right, Daryl Blocker, we appreciate it as always, Daryl. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to ABC News Live. An urgent manhunt is underway in Philadelphia after a recent Temple University graduate was killed in what police say was an apparent random shooting. Surveillance video shows the suspect walk past 23-year-old Everett Beauregard, turn around quickly and fire several times before running away. Beauregard was pronounced dead at the hospital. After declining for nearly 100 days in a row, the price of gas is on the rise again. The national average is now $3.71 a gallon for regular unleaded, still far less than the $5.01 a gallon we saw in mid-June, but some states are seeing a fast rise. And AAA says refinery issues in California are a big reason for the spike. NASA is on a, quote, mission to save humanity by crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid nearly 7 million miles away. Now, they say this particular asteroid is harmless, but the first of its kind experiment aims to change its trajectory. NASA's hoping the mission will help determine what we can do if an asteroid does ever threaten Earth. The impact is scheduled for 7:14 p.m. Eastern Time. And now to that major Super Bowl announcement. Rihanna is officially being tapped as next year's halftime show performer. It'll be the first time she's taking the stage for an event this scale since 2018. Deborah Roberts has the details.
The bad gal herself about to take over football's biggest night. Music superstar and beauty mogul Rihanna dropping a hint seen around the world on Instagram. Her hand holding an NFL football, sparking 1 million likes in just 1 hour.
The news is almost more exciting for Rihanna fans than Super Bowl fans necessarily, because it's been 6 years since she put out any music at all.
The NFL confirming Rihanna's halftime show, which will be sponsored by Apple Music and produced by Roc Nation. Roc Nation's founder, Jay-Z, posting, Rihanna's a generational talent, a woman of humble beginnings who's surpassed expectations at every turn, a person born on the small island of Barbados who became one of the most prominent artists ever.
Work, 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 work.
It's a long-anticipated return for the music icon, who for years has focused on building her multi-billion-dollar Fenty beauty empire and being a mom to her 4-month-old son with rapper A$AP Rocky. Rihanna's last project, Anti, released in 2016, and it's been 4 years since her last live performance at the Grammys.
Under my
The halftime show announcement, a major shift for the pop star, who previously turned down the role, speaking out against the NFL about the perceived blacklisting of quarterback Colin Kaepernick, whose protest against racial injustice sparked backlash. Telling Vogue, I couldn't dare do that. For what? Who gains from that? Not my people. I just couldn't be a sellout. I couldn't be an enabler. There's things within that organization that I do not agree with at all, and I was not about to go and be of service to them in any way.
the NFL, at least outwardly, in terms of entertainment, has changed its tune quite a bit. And in the years since Rock Nation took over, it's been a very concerted effort to have people of color on the show.
Our thanks to Deborah Roberts for that report, and our thanks to you for joining us. I'm Diane Macedo. Stay with us as ABC News Live continues with more news, context, and analysis.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.